Hello friends, happy weekend to you. I hope you guys are having a restful weekend. Devo for today, I'm going to talk a little bit about motivation of the heart and where we get courage from. So in Galatians, we are going to hop on in. Paul is speaking to the church of Galatia, and in Galatians 1, I'm going to read verse 10 specifically, but right before that, he's, bringing a little loving, kind, bold rebuke of why they are perverting the gospel, because they are taking off grace, and any gospel that is without grace is a gospel that is perverted. So he goes and he says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Crazy! So, needless to say, right? Being a servant of Christ, being like my thoughts, my actions are all over to Jesus. Like I am ruled by Jesus. I'm ruled by His Spirit, and what He wants, the will of God, I'm living it by that. That would be being a servant of Christ. But if I'm living by the decisions of man, how they think, what they want, if I'm in constant fear when I walk into a room, what are people thinking? What are they going to think about me? If I'm hindered in speaking the gospel in truth of explaining grace, if I'm hindered from living that out, I'm not a servant of Christ, but a servant of man. I'm a servant of their thoughts. And that is not a life that is leading to truth or joy or abundancy. And in Acts 4, you guys are familiar, where it's Paul and John. And in Acts 3, they go and they see this man who is paralyzed. He was a lame beggar, actually. And they saw him and just preached the simple gospel, told him to get up, and the guy is healed immediately. And then they use that opportunity to bring the attention back to Jesus. They preach the gospel, and it draws this huge crowd. Sanhedrin, the religious sect of the day, is mad. They're so mad. They thought they were done with Jesus. They thought they were done with, they killed him, and now all these people doing miracles and preaching the gospel in His name. And they bring both of the men before them, and they're, in front of the court, and they have to explain, what they did. And they have to explain why they're doing what they're doing and make a case for themselves. And the whole time that they're speaking, they're just sharing their experience. They're not going into intellectualism. They're not going into what they think they want to hear. They're not saying things that will just make the Sanhedrin back down, but they are just laying out their experience. And then the Sanhedrin calls them back, and they told them, we don't want you to speak in the name of Jesus. So this is Acts 4, 18 through 20. It says, "Then they called them in again and commanded them not to speak to each other at all in the name of Jesus. But Peter and John replied, 'Which is right in God's eyes, to listen to you or to Him? You be the judges. As for us, we cannot help speaking what we have seen and what we have heard.'" It's so simple, right? They didn't fall into a trap. I think so many times, I've definitely been there, of wanting to look smart or get my way out of something, or use intellectualism, use my own understanding, use my own wisdom, instead of just preaching the simple gospel and sharing my experience and my truth. And in this day, we really do have a choice, and they could have stopped preaching. They could have let it be and just went on with their lives and lived a quiet Christian life with their families, whatever. But we would not have Christianity today if these men wouldn't have been bold enough to keep going and to keep speaking and keep sharing their experience, even when persecution came. And this is where true grace is. It's letting the grace of God draw us forward, that we have been saved. We've been saved from so much. God's grace, His mercy, His love for us cannot be, the gospel cannot be a gospel without it. And really, if we're living our lives in this way, we automatically will speak what we've seen, because we're so driven by His love. We're not driven by outside sources, but we're driven by His pleasure over us. And this really is, like, if I live my life bound up by others' thoughts, I will be so swirled out. I'll be so confused all the time. I will be a wretched mess. But if I'm living my life according to the gospel, a servant to Christ, it's leading to life abundant, to fullness of joy, and to my righteousness. So for you today, for me today, this weekend, think, how am I living my life? Where am I getting my motivation from? Is it from the gospel? Is God's grace driving me forward? And if there's any part in my heart that is wanting to prove something outside of it, then taking that back to Jesus. I love you guys. Hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'm praying for you.